The pencil marks in her father's journal had faded to ghost gray, but Harper Sinclair still traced them with her finger every morning before school. Truth always leaves a paper trail. He'd written 3 days before the cancer took him. She was 17 now, 7 years past that hospital goodbye. But she still heard his voice in those words. Her mother said she had his eyes, observant, always watching, always documenting. What her mother didn't know was that Harper had been documenting everything at Westbridge High School for the past 3 months. Not because she planned to use it, just because her father had taught her that memories lie. But records don't. The morning everything changed started like any other. Harper sat in the back corner of the library during first period study hall, her spot by the window where dust motes danced in the early light. She had her father's journal open beside her calculus textbook, using it as a bookmark, like always. Her phone vibrated against the wooden table. Jackson, can we talk real talk? After school. Our place. Their place was the abandoned greenhouse behind the agricultural building, where art students used to grow flowers for still life classes before budget cuts killed the program. 6 months they'd been meeting there. 6 months of stolen moments between his lacrosse practice and her library shifts. 6 months of keeping quiet, because Jackson Hawthorne dating Harper Sinclair would upset the careful ecosystem of Westbridge High. She typed back, "Everything okay?" The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again, then nothing. Harper knew the Hawthorne family the way everyone in Westbridge knew them, from a distance, like watching fire through glass. Mayor Hawthorne had run the town for 12 years. Mrs. Hawthorne floated through charity events with wine-glazed eyes and practiced smiles. Bryce, the eldest son, ruled the school with the casual cruelty of someone who'd never heard the word no. And Jackson painted watercolors in secret and read poetry during lunch, and somehow survived being soft in a family that valued hardness above all else. The bell rang. Harper gathered her things, sliding her father's journal into her backpack with the careful reverence of someone handling scripture. She didn't notice Madison Chen watching from 2 tables over, or the way Madison's fingers flew across her phone screen, typing a message that would change everything. By lunch, the cafeteria hummed with barely contained energy. Harper felt it the moment she walked in, that electric anticipation that meant something was about to happen. She kept her head down, tray balanced, heading for her usual table in the corner with Mac Torres. "Don't look," Mac whispered as soon as Harper sat down. "But Bryce has been staring at you for the past 5 minutes." Harper's stomach clenched. She focused on unwrapping her sandwich, movements deliberate and calm. "Any idea why? Girl, when has Bryce Hawthorne ever needed a reason to terrorize someone?" But this felt different, targeted. Harper risked a glance across the cafeteria. Bryce sat at the center table, the one everyone called the throne, surrounded by his lacrosse teammates. He wasn't eating, wasn't talking, just watching her with the focused intensity of a predator who'd caught a scent. Then Jackson walked in. Harper's heart lifted for a moment before she saw his face. Pale, drawn. He looked like he'd been crying. Their eyes met across the crowded room, and she saw him mouth a single word, "Sorry." Bryce stood up. The cafeteria didn't exactly go silent, but conversations died in waves as Bryce crossed the room. 6'2", built like the athlete he was, moving with the confidence of someone who'd never lost a fight. He stopped at Harper's table. "So," he said, voice carrying across the now quiet room. "Harper Sinclair." She made herself look up. Meet his eyes. They were the same shade of brown as Jackson's, but cold, where Jackson's were warm. "I hear you've been keeping secrets," Bryce continued. He pulled out the chair across from her, sat down uninvited. "See? Madison Chen saw something interesting this morning. A text on your phone. From my baby brother." Mac tensed beside her. Harper kept her face neutral, a skill learned from years of making herself invisible. "Now, I'm not an unreasonable person," Bryce said, leaning back in his chair. "I understand attractions happen. Chemistry, hormones, whatever. But here's the thing. Harper, my family has a certain standing in this community, a reputation to maintain. And that reputation doesn't include my brother slumming with cafeteria workers' daughters." The words hit like physical blows. Harper's mother worked in the courthouse cafeteria, a job she'd taken after leaving her position as a public defender to care for Harper's father during his illness. It was honest work, necessary work, but in Bryce's mouth it sounded like something shameful. "I don't know what you're talking about," Harper said quietly. Bryce smiled. It was the kind of smile that made you understand why nature gave prey animals the instinct to run. "No, let me refresh your memory." He pulled out his phone, swiped to a photo. Harper and Jackson in the greenhouse, her hand on his cheek. Both of them laughing at something she couldn't remember now. The angle meant someone had been watching. Waiting. "Delete it," Max said suddenly. "That's creepy voyeur garbage, and you know it." Bryce didn't even look at her. His eyes stayed locked on Harper. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to end whatever this is with my brother. Today, you're going to tell him you were using him, that you wanted access to our family's money, our connections. You're going to break his heart clean so he learns his lesson about trusting charity cases." "No." The word came out stronger than Harper felt. Bryce's eyebrows rose. "No. No." Harper stood up, legs shaky but holding. "I won't hurt him because you're too insecure to handle your brother dating someone you consider beneath you. That's your problem, not mine." The cafeteria held its breath. Nobody talked to Bryce Hawthorne like that. Nobody. Bryce stood too, slowly, deliberately. "You know what? You're right. It is my problem." He slipped his phone back in his pocket. "And I'm very, very good at solving problems." He walked away, leaving Harper standing there with her heart hammering and her hands clenched into fists. Around her, conversations slowly resumed, but she caught the looks, heard the whispers. The invisible girl had just painted a target on her back. Mac grabbed her arm. "We need to get you out of here." But Harper was looking across the cafeteria at Jackson, who sat at a corner table with his head in his hands. She thought about her father's journal, about truth leaving paper trails, about documenting everything. She had a feeling she was going to need evidence for whatever came next. That afternoon, Harper waited in the greenhouse despite every instinct screaming at her to run. Jackson arrived 15 minutes late, eyes red-rimmed, shoulders hunched like he was carrying the world. "I'm so sorry," he said before she could speak. "Madison saw your phone this morning. She's had a thing for me since freshman year, and when she saw we were texting, she went straight to Bryce." Harper crossed to him, took his paint-stained hands in hers. "This isn't your fault." "You don't understand." His voice cracked. "Bryce doesn't just get mad. He destroys things, people. Remember Garrett Murray?" Harper remembered. Garrett had dared to beat Bryce for class president junior year. Within a month, photos had surfaced of Garrett at a party, clearly drugged. in compromising positions. His parents had pulled him out of school. The photos were fake, everyone knew it, but the damage was done. "We can be more careful," Harper said. There is no we." Jackson pulled his hands away. "Not anymore. I can't watch him do to you what he did to Garrett, what he's done to everyone who's ever challenged him. So you're just giving up, letting him win." "It's not about winning." The words exploded out of him. "It's about surviving. You don't know what it's like in that house. The pressure, the expectations, the way my mom drinks herself to sleep every night because she can't stand what my father's become. The way Bryce learned cruelty like other kids learn multiplication tables." Harper thought about her own house, small but warm, filled with her mother's law books and her father's old records, where love was abundant even when money wasn't. "Then come to mine," she said. "You practically live at school anyway, between lacrosse and art club. You could—" "Harper." His voice was gentle now, defeated. "I'm not brave like you. I can't stand up to him. I've been trying my whole life, and all it's ever gotten me is bruises hidden under long sleeves and a brother who sees me as a possession instead of a person." She wanted to argue, to fight, to rage against the unfairness of it all, but she saw the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of 18 years of being Bryce Hawthorne's brother. "Okay," she whispered, "if that's what you need." "It's not what I need. It's what has to happen." He reached into his backpack, pulled out a small wrapped package. "I was going to give you this today, before everything went wrong." She unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a leather-bound journal, almost identical to her father's, but pristine, untouched. "You're always writing in your dad's journal," Jackson said. "I thought maybe it was time you had your own, for your own stories." Harper ran her fingers over the smooth leather, throat tight with unshed tears. "Jax, keep documenting everything," he said, "like your dad taught you, because someday, when I'm brave enough, when I'm free enough, I want to read all the stories I missed." He kissed her forehead, gentle as a whisper, and walked away. That night, Harper sat at her desk with the new journal open in front of her. The blank pages seemed to mock her, all that white space waiting to be filled with words she didn't have yet. She picked up her pen, wrote the date at the top of the first page, then stopped. What was there to say? That she'd fallen for a boy who painted sunsets and read Neruda in Spanish? That his brother was a monster wearing a Letterman jacket? That love wasn't enough when fear was stronger? She heard her mother moving around downstairs, probably reviewing case files at the kitchen table like she did every night. Diane Sinclair had given up a promising career as a public defender to care for Harper's father in his final years, then scraped together enough money to put herself through additional certifications just last month. She'd finally opened her own practice, a tiny office above the bakery on Main Street, with second-hand furniture and a printer that jammed if you looked at it wrong. Harper wrote, "Day 1, Bryce Hawthorne decided I was a problem to be solved." The words looked small on the page, inadequate to capture the weight of what had happened. But her father always said the first words were the hardest. After that, truth had its own momentum. A notification lit up her phone. Instagram. Someone had tagged her in a post. The account was called @Westbridge Trash Watch. The profile picture was a garbage can with a crown on it. The first post was a photo of Harper from last year's school pictures. Edited to look like a $, was tattooed on her forehead. The caption read, "When cafeteria workers' daughters think they can social climb their way to success. Know your place. Trailer trash." Harper screenshotted it before it could disappear. Documentation, evidence, paper trails. Within an hour, the account had 50 followers. By midnight, it had 200. Every post was about Harper. Her clothes, thrift store, finds artfully edited to look worse. Her mother, public records of their mortgage information. Her father, obituary from 7 years ago with cruel commentary about genetic weakness. Mac called at 1 in the morning. I'm trying to trace the IP address, but they're using a VPN. These people know what they're doing. It's Bryce, Harper said, or someone doing it for him. Knowing it and proving it are two different things. You need to tell your mom. Harper looked at the light still on in the kitchen. Thought about her mother bent over legal documents, fighting other people's battles because she believed in justice. Not yet, Harper said. Let him think I'm weak. Let him think I'm alone. Harper, document everything. Right, let's see how much rope he needs to hang himself. But lying in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, Harper wondered if she was being brave or stupid. The Instagram posts were already spreading beyond Westbridge High. She'd seen shares from neighboring schools, comments from strangers who didn't know her but felt entitled to judge her anyway. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is just the beginning. Gold digger. By the time I'm done, you'll wish you'd never looked at my brother. Your Harper screenshotted that too, added it to a folder she labeled Evidence. Then she opened her new journal and wrote until her hand cramped, documenting every word, every feeling, every moment of a day that had tilted her world off its axis. If this reminds you of someone, maybe yourself at 17, maybe your child now, remember that silence in the face of cruelty isn't strength. It's just silence. And sometimes the quietest people have the most important stories to tell. The next morning came too soon and not soon enough. Harper had barely slept, her phone pinging all night with notifications as the hate spread across social media like wildfire. She turned off her phone, got dressed in her usual jeans and cardigan, and headed to school with her father's journal in her backpack and Jackson's gift tucked safely in her desk drawer at home. Walking through the parking lot felt like navigating a minefield. Whispers followed her. Phones came out. Pictures were taken. Someone had printed out screenshots from the Instagram account and taped them to her locker. The word gold digger was written across them in red Sharpie. Harper peeled them off methodically, folded them carefully, put them in her evidence folder. Around her, students gathered to watch, waiting to see if she'd break. She didn't give them the satisfaction. Impressive. She turned to find Coach Davidson standing behind her, arms crossed over his massive chest. The former NFL player turned PE teacher rarely involved himself in student drama, but his eyes were kind as they took in the scene. You need to report this, he said quietly. To who? Harper asked. Principal Miller, who plays golf with Mayor Hawthorne every Sunday, Officer Bennett, whose son is on the lacrosse team with Bryce. Coach Davidson's jaw tightened. He knew she was right. They both did. Then, what's your plan? He asked. Harper looked him in the eye. Document everything. Wait for him to make a mistake. They always do when they think they're untouchable. Something shifted in the coach's expression. Surprise, maybe, or respect. Your father was James Sinclair. Wasn't he the journalist who exposed the county commissioner's embezzlement scheme? Harper nodded. Few people remembered her father's work now. But that investigation had been his proudest achievement. He'd spent months gathering evidence, following paper trails, building an airtight case that even the commissioner's powerful friends couldn't dismiss. "He'd be proud," Coach Davidson said simply, then walked away. Harper made it through her morning classes by becoming invisible again. Or trying to. But invisibility doesn't work when you're trending on social media. By lunch. Westbridge Gold Digger had its own hashtag. Someone had started a betting pool on how long she'd last before transferring schools. She was heading to the library instead of the cafeteria. No way was she walking into that lion's den again when she heard the commotion. Shouting from the art wing. A crowd gathering. Harper pushed through the students to find Jackson on the floor. His nose bleeding. His art portfolio scattered around him. Bryce stood over him. Fists clenched. Face twisted with rage. "I told you to stay away from her," Bryce shouted. "But you couldn't listen, could you? Had to go behind my back like a little... Enough." The voice that rang out was Harper's own, though she barely recognized it. She stepped between the brothers, facing Bryce, her fear swallowed by fury. "He ended it," she said. "He did what you wanted. This is just you being cruel because you can." Bryce's eyes narrowed. "You don't get to speak to me. Someone has to." Harper heard her voice steady, clear, carrying across the gathered crowd. "You're so terrified of losing control that you'll beat your own brother. What kind of man does that make you?" The silence was deafening. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then Bryce smiled that cold, predator's smile. "You want to see what kind of man I am? Fine, let me show you." He turned and walked away, the crowd parting for him like water. Harper knelt beside Jackson, helped him gather his scattered artwork, beautiful watercolors of the greenhouse, the lacrosse field at sunset, her profile captured in delicate strokes. "You shouldn't have done that," Jackson whispered, wincing as she helped him to his feet. "Someone had to," Harper repeated. But as she walked him to the nurse's office, she couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just escalated a cold war into something much more dangerous. Bryce Hawthorne didn't make idle threats, and now she'd challenged him in front of the entire school. Her phone, turned back on during passing period, exploded with notifications. The video of her confronting Bryce was already online, posted from multiple angles, but for every comment supporting her bravery. There were 3 calling her worse names than before. Mac found her in the bathroom, where Harper was splashing cold water on her face, trying to wash away the feeling of 100 eyes watching her. "I've been digging," Mac said without preamble. "The Instagram account, the posts, all of it. They're being coordinated through a group chat. I managed to get screenshots." She showed Harper her phone. The chat was called Operation Trash Removal. The members used nicknames, but they weren't trying very hard to hide. B.H. King, Maddie's, LayXBro89. They'd been planning this for days, assigning roles, scheduling posts for maximum impact. This is conspiracy," Max said. "Coordinated harassment. It's illegal." Harper studied the screenshots, her mind working. Her father had taught her about patterns, about how criminals always thought they were smarter than they were. There was something here, something in the timestamps. "Mac," she said slowly, "look at when these were sent. During school hours, during classes. So they were using school Wi-Fi. The district keeps logs of everything." Mac's eyes widened. Those logs would show exactly which devices accessed what sites when. But we'd need admin access to get them. "Or a subpoena," Harper said quietly. She thought about her mother, about the new law practice, about the boxes of legal books that had taken over their dining room. Diane Sinclair had spent 15 years as a public defender before Dad got sick. She knew the law inside and out. But Harper also knew what taking this legal would mean. No more flying under the radar. No more hoping it would blow over. It would be war. And wars had casualties on both sides. The bathroom door opened. Madison Chen walked in, saw them, and started to leave. Then she stopped, turned back. "I didn't know," she said quietly. "When I told Bryce about the text, I thought, I didn't know he'd do all this." Harper studied her, Madison with her perfect grades and student council position, who'd had a crush on Jackson since freshman year. "But you knew he'd do something," Harper said. It wasn't a question. Madison's silence was answer enough. "You have a choice," Harper continued. "You can keep being part of this, or you can decide that destroying someone's life isn't worth whatever you thought you'd gain." Madison fled without another word, but Harper saw something in her eyes. Doubt, maybe, or the beginning of guilt. It wasn't much, but it was a crack in Bryce's army. That afternoon, Harper did something she had been avoiding. She went home early, found her mother at the kitchen table surrounded by case files, and told her everything. Diane Sinclair listened without interrupting, her expression growing more grave with each detail. When Harper showed her the screenshots, the evidence folder, the documentation of everything that had happened, her mother's professional mask slipped for just a moment, revealing the rage underneath. "Baby," she said softly, "why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I wanted to handle it myself. Because you're just getting the practice started and you don't need this. Because," Harper's voice broke, "because I thought if I was strong enough, if I was quiet enough, it would go away." Her mother pulled her into a fierce hug. "Oh, sweetheart, being strong doesn't mean facing this alone. Your father documented corruption to protect others. You've been documenting harassment. Do you know what that makes you?" Harper shook her head against her mother's shoulder. "Just like him. Brave and brilliant, and too stubborn for your own good." Diane pulled back, cupped Harper's face in her hands. "Now, let me tell you what's going to happen. Tomorrow, we're going to Principal Miller. We're bringing every piece of evidence. And if he doesn't act, we're going to the school board. And if they don't act, we're going to make this very, very legal." But Bryce's father is a small-town mayor who thinks his money makes him untouchable. Diane's smile was sharp as a blade. "I've taken down bigger men than Richard Hawthorne, and I did it following the law to the letter." That night, Harper opened Jackson's gift, the new journal, and wrote, "Day 3, Mom knows. The storm is coming. I'm not sure if I'm ready, but I'm tired of being afraid. Dad always said the truth leaves a paper trail. Tomorrow, we start following it all the way to whatever end waits for us." She paused, pen hovering over the page, then added, "I think about everyone who's been where I am, pushed down, pushed around, told to know their place. How many stayed quiet? How many never got justice? I can't save them all. But maybe, if I'm loud enough, if I document enough, if I refuse to disappear, maybe the next girl won't have to fight so hard to be seen as human." Outside her window, spring rain began to fall, washing the day's dust from the suburban streets. But Harper knew that some stains went deeper than rain could reach. Tomorrow, the real fight would begin. The meeting with Principal Miller went exactly as Harper expected. He sat behind his mahogany desk, fingers steepled, face arranged in practiced concern, while Diane Sinclair laid out evidence like a prosecutor building a case. "This is obviously concerning," Miller said when she finished. But teenagers can be cruel to each other without definitive proof that Bryce himself, Article 29117.21 of the Ohio Revised Code. Diane interrupted smoothly. Telecommunications harassment, Section 29117.211, dissemination of matter harmful to juveniles. And if any of these images cross state lines via Instagram servers, we're looking at federal charges. Miller's face paled. Surely we can handle this internally without involving. My daughter has been systematically harassed for 4 days. Your security cameras captured at least 3 incidents. Your IT logs will show coordinated attacks using school resources. Diane leaned forward. You have 24 hours to take meaningful action. Or I file a formal complaint with the school board and the police simultaneously. Walking out of the office, Harper felt something shift. Her mother in professional mode was formidable, every word precise, every legal citation perfect. You scared him, Harper said. Good. Men like Miller respond only to threats to their own position. Diane squeezed her daughter's hand. But Bryce won't stop. He'll escalate. Are you prepared for that? Harper thought about her father's journal, about paper trails and truth. I have to be. The escalation came faster than expected. Within hours of their meeting, Harper's locker was vandalized with spray paint. Someone keyed her mother's car in the courthouse parking lot. The Instagram attacks multiplied, spawning copycat accounts faster than they could be reported. But something else happened, too. Stephanie Walsh, a sophomore who'd been Bryce's target last year, slipped Harper a note. He did the same to me. I have screenshots. Tommy Chen, Madison's younger brother, offered his own evidence. Even some of Bryce's teammates began distancing themselves, unwilling to risk their futures for his vendetta. 3 days before prom, Jackson found Harper in the greenhouse. His face still showed bruises from Bryce's attack, purple-yellow shadows under his left eye. You shouldn't be here, Harper said, though her heart leapt at seeing him. I know. He sat beside her on the old potting bench. But I had to warn you, Bryce is planning something for prom, something big. I'm not going to prom. That won't matter. He'll make sure you see it anyway. Jackson took her hand, held it like something precious. He's got some tech kid working on, I don't know exactly, but I heard him say your name and deepfake in the same sentence. Harper's stomach turned. Deepfakes, digitally manipulated videos or images that looked real, the revenge porn of the AI age. Let him try, she said with more confidence than she felt. Harper, no. She turned to face him fully. I'm done being afraid. I'm done letting him control our lives. You want to warn me, fine, but I'm not running. Something flickered in Jackson's eyes, admiration, maybe, or hope. You're the bravest person I know. Then be brave with me, she challenged. He kissed her then, soft and desperate, tasting of paint and possibility. When they broke apart, he was crying. After prom, he whispered. After graduation. After I turn 18 and he can't. Just wait for me. Please. Harper held him while he shook. This beautiful boy, broken by a brother who confused control with love. Prom night arrived, wrapped in tulle and testosterone. The West Bridge High Gymnasium transformed into an underwater theme that seemed ironically appropriate. Everyone drowning in their own drama. Harper wasn't there, but Mac was. Armed with her phone and a mission, she live-streamed everything to Harper, who watched from her bedroom while her mother sat beside her, recording everything on a second device. Legal documentation, Diane said grimly. At 9:47 p.m., it happened. The DJ's music cut out. The lights dimmed. On the massive projection screen meant for senior memories, a new slideshow began. Harper Sinclair, The Real Story. What followed was a masterclass in digital cruelty. Real photos of Harper edited into pornographic scenes. Her face convincingly mapped onto explicit videos, each image titled with degrading captions about gold diggers and knowing your place. The gymnasium erupted. Some laughed. Some gasped. Most pulled out phones, recording, sharing, spreading the humiliation viral before the chaperones could even reach the projection booth. But Mac kept her camera steady, capturing not just the screen, but the crowd's reactions. She caught Bryce in perfect clarity, standing near the DJ booth with a satisfied smirk. She caught Madison Chen turning away in horror. She caught Principal Miller frozen in shock. And she caught Coach Davidson moving with purpose. Not toward the screen, but toward the exit, where two figures were trying to leave. The tech kid who'd created the images, and Bryce's teammate who'd provided the USB drive. "Got them," Mac whispered into her phone. Harper couldn't respond. She stared at her laptop screen, watching her digital destruction play out in real time. Her mother's arm came around her shoulders. "Baby." "No." Harper's voice was steel. "Let them finish. Let them show everyone exactly who they are." The slideshow ran for 3 minutes before someone finally killed the projector. 3 minutes that felt like 3 hours. 3 minutes that would follow Harper forever in internet infamy. Or so Bryce thought. What he didn't know was that Coach Davidson had spent the week quietly gathering his own evidence. Security footage from the Art Wing attack, screenshots from players' phones, recording devices hidden in the locker room where Bryce bragged about his plans. What he didn't know was that Madison Chen, horrified by her role in starting this, had come forward with the original group chat logs. What he didn't know was that Diane Sinclair had spent 3 days preparing federal paperwork. Because Harper was 17, a minor, and the creation and distribution of sexually explicit images of a minor. Even deepfakes carried serious federal charges. The police arrived at the Hawthorne mansion at 6 a.m. the next morning. Harper watched from her window as 3 squad cars pulled up, as officers knocked on the mayor's door, as Bryce was led out in handcuffs, while neighbors gathered on their lawns to stare. The arrest was just the beginning. The investigation revealed a pattern of harassment spanning 3 years. Multiple victims, coordinated attacks. The tech kid offered a plea deal, provided evidence of Bryce ordering the deepfakes. The teammate confirmed plans to humiliate Harper. Coach Davidson's recordings were damning. Mayor Hawthorne hired the best lawyers money could buy, but some things couldn't be spun. The federal prosecutor, a woman who'd gone to law school with Diane, took special interest in a case involving cyberbullying and sexual harassment of a minor. 2 weeks later, Jackson stood in Harper's doorway with a duffel bag and tear-stained cheeks. "I testified," he said simply, "against him, against my own brother." Harper pulled him inside, held him while he broke apart, and slowly, carefully, began putting himself back together. The trial took months. Harper testified via video link, calm and clear, reading from the journal she'd kept. Every incident, every threat, every moment of pain transformed into evidence. Bryce took a plea deal eventually. 200 hours of community service, 3 years probation, mandatory counseling, loss of his Yale scholarship, a criminal record that would follow him forever. It wasn't enough, would never be enough for the trauma he'd caused. But it was something. It was consequences. It was justice, grinding slow but sure. Mayor Hawthorne resigned in disgrace. Mrs. Hawthorne finally got help for her drinking. The family moved away. Their kingdom crumbled. Their name synonymous with scandal. But Harper's story didn't end with their downfall. She started small. A support group at the library for cyberbullying victims. Then workshops on digital rights and online safety. By graduation, she was speaking at other schools, sharing her story, teaching kids to document everything, to know their rights, to refuse silence. The day she gave her first presentation, nervous in front of 30 middle schoolers, a girl in the back raised her hand. "What if nobody believes you?" the girl asked, voice small. Harper thought of her father's journal, her mother's law books, the trail of evidence that saved her. "You document it anyway," she said. "You tell your story anyway. You find one person who believes you, and you build from there. Because your truth matters, even when people try to bury it." After the presentation, the girl lingered, showed Harper her phone, Instagram harassment, coordinated attacks, a familiar pattern. "First rule," Harper said gently, "document everything. Second rule, you're not alone. Third rule, the law is on your side." She handed the girl a card with her mother's law office number. Fourth rule, sometimes the quietest people become the strongest voices. 6 months later, Harper got an email. The girl's bullies had been expelled. She was starting 8th grade fresh, free, unafraid. Harper printed the email, tucked it into her journal, no longer her father's, no longer Jackson's gift, but her own, filled with her own stories of survival and strength. Outside her dorm window at Ohio State, where she'd started studying journalism and law. Spring rain fell soft on new grass. Jackson was at art school in Chicago, finally free to paint his watercolors in peace. They talked every night, building something new from the ashes of their trauma. Her phone buzzed. Mac. From MIT. Another girl reached out, shared your video, says you saved her life. Harper smiled, opened her laptop, began typing, "The truth doesn't always win immediately. Sometimes it takes time, takes courage, takes more strength than any 17-year-old should need. But here's what I learned: silence is not safety. Documentation is not paranoia. And sometimes the girl who just wanted to be invisible becomes the light that helps others find their way out of the dark." Today, I run workshops in 23 schools. I've helped 47 students navigate cyberbullying cases. I've watched predators like Bryce Hawthorne finally face consequences. But mostly, I've learned that our scars don't define us. Our response to them does. And if my story helps even one person refuse to be silenced, then every moment of pain was worth it. Document everything. Trust your truth. And remember, the paper trail leads both ways. It can bury you, or it can be the roadmap to justice. Choose justice. Choose your voice. Choose to be the hero of your own story. Even when, especially when, they try to write you as the villain. Harper saved the file, closed her laptop, picked up her phone to call Jackson, outside. The world spun on, full of Bryces and Harpers, predators and survivors, silence and truth. But in her small corner of it, Harper Sinclair was teaching others to roar. The meek hadn't inherited the earth yet, but they were learning to fight for it, one documented truth at a time. 3 years later, Harper stood in the same library where she'd once hidden from the world. But now she faced a packed room, her mother in the front row, Jackson beside her with his sketch pad. "My father wrote that truth always leaves a paper trail," Harper began, holding up his original journal, now weathered and precious. "He died before he could see how his words would save his daughter's life." She opened her laptop, showed the statistics on screen. "In 3 years, our Digital Dignity Project has helped 847 students. We've seen 89 successful prosecutions. We've trained 400 peer counselors." A hand raised. A young boy, maybe 15, wearing an oversized hoodie that couldn't hide his hunched shoulders. "Does it ever stop hurting?" he asked. Harper's throat tightened. She saw herself in him, saw every kid who'd ever been told they didn't belong. "It becomes a different kind of hurt," she said honestly. "One that reminds you how strong you've become. One that pushes you to make sure nobody else hurts alone." After the presentation, the boy approached her, pulled out a notebook. "I've been documenting everything," he whispered, "like you taught us." Harper smiled, remembering her father's words one last time. The paper trail continued, leading not to revenge, but to redemption. Not to silence, but to symphony, a chorus of voices refusing to be erased.